I'll call to order the regular Dunsmuir City Council meeting for May 16, 2019 at approximately 6:02:03 p.m. We will start with the flag salute. Councilmember Northwood, please lead us off.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And we'll move to item number 2 on our agenda, which is the roll call.
Councilmember Jones.
Here.
Councilmember Bryan.
Present.
Councilmember Craig.
Here.
Councilmember Art.
Here.
And Mayor Hughes.
Present. We'll now move on to item number 3, which is special presentations and announcements, and we do not have any scheduled for today. We will now move into item number 4, which is our general public comment section. So general public comment is for things that are not scheduled on the agenda that you wish to come up and speak about. You will have 3 minutes to give your general public comment, and anyone can come up at this time to do the general comments.
The public concern? If it's not about anything on the agenda, so.
Yeah. So yeah, there will be opportunities at each of the items. So the items for tonight is the Prop 218 process. There will be public comment sections for those specifically. So we ask you don't speak on that matter now. And then the new business, so anything on item number 9, which is the exception of bids for the hazardous material removal, acceptance and approval of amendment number 1 to the Pace Engineering. Acceptance and approval to increasing monthly fees for the building department and authorizing the fire chief. If it's not one of those items, now is the time to come up and give public comment.
Not public comment, but I have some concerns that I want to share with the city council members here. And the two concerns that I have, one of them is the first concern is the blatant lies and concocting false stories by the employees at the city office.
What's your name, sir, for the record?
My name is, I'm Dr. Srivastava, and I'm a resident here since 1981. I'm a retired physician.
Thank you. Please continue.
I've already talked to and expressed my concern to Blake Michelson, and that was some time back, maybe about a month ago. And I think a lying employee working in a public office not only damages the image of the city, but also creates ill will between the city and its residents. And I think a person who lies and sits in the city's office should have no place in there. My second concern is a delayed response by the city employee on call for emergency services. In a recent incident, I had to pay extra time for the plumber that had to wait for the city's employees on call to come and turn the water off. No response in a timely manner, and will only worsen the damage many folds. If no response is made in a timely manner, the damage can get many folds worse. For example, a water leak in the house, and if the person doesn't show up in time, the same water leak can get much worse. These are the two main concerns I have at the moment, and I think city council members, whatever they decide,
Great,
Thank
thank you. Are there any other general public comments?
Hi, I'm Carrie Oppen, kind of loud. I'm here to express concern about the lack of animal enforcement that we have in town. My neighbor's dogs were recently attacked for the second time in their own yard by pit bulls running the street. And it's not that I have an issue with pit bulls, but I think all dogs need to be contained, and there needs to be somebody that we can count on and call for help. And it's not safe to walk the streets. I try to walk in the evening, and they're roaming the town everywhere, even the little ankle nippers. And you know, we don't have any recourse but to come here and plead to you guys to find a solution for us. So I'm asking that you put it on your schedule of events for your next meeting to discuss and see, you know, what propositions there can be. Send out, you know, people are willing to do, you know, I personally would be willing to pay extra if that's what it took in order to get safety on the streets. I'm hoping it doesn't have to be that way, but if that's what it is, I know a lot of you probably see the social media feeds, and there's been a lot of people in the last 2 weeks just really outraged because there's been like 3 different attacks. So I'm here standing up saying, please, let's find a solution. Okay, and that, will it be on the agenda next week?
So
Can you
public
or
comment.
next month?
So the public comment is just for you to give a public comment, it's not a response situation. There is a city council staff comment later in a future agenda item later in the agenda where we would bring it up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Just one,
Again, it's not dialogue here, we can speak about it later.
I hope you stay until that part of the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
All right, are there any other general comments from the public regarding items that are not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment section and move on to the approval of the minutes. Right now, we are on approval of minutes for the regular meeting for April 18th, 2019. Is there any discussion on the minutes?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I understand that the city clerk has a correction that one of the citizens would like to make.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, who wanted to make that correction?
Lori Barnes.
I'm sorry,
Lori?
yeah. Lori said that it was not, she did not make the comments that I attributed to her, so we will take her name off and I will take that with her.
It was Lori Watts.
Thank you.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, wrong Lori.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, now that we've had that change and set the record straight, before I make a motion to accept the minutes, I have a comment, and I think it's imperative. To the last lady that spoke, I did see all the social media.
So again, we have a section for staff comment and future agenda items. Please refrain from your comments until those appropriate times.
I will.
We are on, thank you. We are on the
I make
minutes
a motion to approve the minutes
as amended.
as amended.
Second motion.
All right, there's a motion and a second to approve the minutes for the April 18, 2019 meeting as amended. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
How about a little bit of discussion?
Okay,
As much as I love the new format for the agenda, I do not see where the council approves the agenda for the meeting as we used to. Is that not online or did that disappear?
that disappeared with the new protocols and new format.
So, in approving the minutes and looking at the agenda, if you look at the minutes of April 18th,
So
item
is there,
7, committee reports, yes, I would like my public works resolution to be on this agenda for discussion.
correct, so we're not on the topic of the agenda itself. You can bring the comments up during staff and council member comments. Right now, we are on the topic of the minutes from the last meeting. If there's an
And that's
incorrect
where-
record of time, please
That's
let me know.
where the mayor said there needs to be a resolution including mission statement and goals for the public works committee.
So again,
I
there's a
prepared
motion on the
that.
table to approve the minutes as agenda. We're discussing the minutes, so if there is not a discussion on the minutes as they were recorded, we will move on. There's a staff and member comments section, which is appropriate for any issues you may have. So going back to the motion at hand, there's a motion on the table to approve the minutes of April 18, 2019's regular meeting as amended. It has been motioned by Councilmember Keisler and seconded by Councilmember Bryan, to my understanding. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Nays, abstentions, motion carries. The meeting minutes have been approved as amended. We'll now move to the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of proposed actions on business matters which are considered routine, for which approval is based on previously approved city policy and practice. So the only item that is on the consent agenda for today is item A, which is the receiving of a donation for monies to repair the tunnel at Children's Park and authorizing the purchase of materials from Game Time for that repair. Is there any discussion? Or, go ahead.
I'd like to thank the people that did this, and I'd like to make a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Great, thank you very much. Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. All those in favor of approve?
Can we have a little bit of discussion?
Okay.
Is the donor of the funds preferring to remain anonymous?
Yes.
or not?
Yes, and Mandy.
Thank you.
Did you have any other questions? No. Okay. All right, seeing no other questions, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, item A, receiving donation of monies to repair the tunnel at Children's Park and authorizing purchase of materials from Game Time, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Point of interest.
Yep.
Should that have been a roll call?
No, it's
It's a consent agenda, but it's still money?
coming in.
Okay, just want to make sure.
We're not spending any of our money,
All right,
but thank you.
I got that still.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, just want to make sure.
So we're moving to item number 7, which is the public hearing. We will begin with our Prop 218 public hearing. So we begin with item 7A, which is the Prop 218 public hearing for the sewer utility rate increases. And so I will begin by opening the public hearing for the Prop 218 for the sewer utility rates, and I will now call for the staff report.
This has been on the council's agenda, if you will, for some time. You've been through almost a year of review. You've had a public, Pace Engineering came and did a professional study, made recommendations. Those recommendations were presented to the public. There's been town meetings where an understanding of what all of this would entail have been presented. The council adopted a ballot measure to go out on this. It is now in the process, the time for us to count the ballots after the public hearing and public comments.
All right, thank you. Council members, do you have any questions for staff? And at this time, I shall ask that you defer any opinions on the matter to later until after public comment, but if you have any clarifying questions, please ask them now. Seeing none, we will move on to public comments, and this is the time where you'll have 3 minutes to come up and speak on the Prop 218 for the utility rates specifically, so feel free to come up and address the council. Again, it is a 3-minute timeline.
Clarification, ma'am, we're talking for the water, sewage? Sure.
Yeah,
Sewer,
sewer
right.
utility. Yep, we will do the garbage rates next, so this is just sewer utility rates. Seeing no public comments on the sewer utility rate, we will now declare the public input portion of the hearing closed. Are we all good with that? Consensus? So we will now direct that the ballots received be counted by the city clerk and number of qualified and unqualified ballots be disclosed. And then upon announcement of results of the election, we will either declare it sufficient or insufficient. So I will leave that to our city clerk.
We're ready.
You're ready? Yay! We'll call everyone back to order. City clerk, are the results sufficient for the protest?
No, there were 1,000,
Let's just for the record make clear, how many parcels are served?
1,277.
Okay, and how many protests do we have?
We received 12, which were all qualified protests.
Okay.
They all included all the necessary information.
Okay, so, and you're not disqualifying any of the protests, okay? So there could, in fact, in those 12 be duplications, but we're counting them all. All right.
Thank you, John.
Well, it's important to make a record of this for litigation
Yeah.
purposes.
That's why we've done here. So, thank you very much. So upon the announcement, we shall now declare the protest insufficient. And so we will now request a discussion and consideration for resolution number 2019-
13, thank you very much. 13 for the sewer
Lucky number 13. All right, I will now open it up for council discussion and consideration of resolution number 2019-13. Is there any discussion? Councilor Bernard.
Well, two comments. To the citizens first, to the Sewer and Solid Waste Committee second, that involved members of the city council led by Councilmember Deutsch. Big Dave was on it, I was on it, citizens were on it, and we achieved consensus. And that reflects in not a bitter fight over raising sewer rates or solid waste rates, but an acceptance that we are a community and we're going to do the right thing. So thank you to everybody for that. Comment two is I had yet to see an advertisement for a wastewater 3 operator, and Base Engineering said to the city and the committee, we need a wastewater 3 operator by 7/1/19, and the committee unanimously agreed, and the council unanimously agreed, and so I don't understand who's responsible for making this happen and whether or not it's going to happen.
City Manager Johnson, would you like to cover any of that and answer some of those questions really quick?
I also congratulate all those who worked on this and did a good job. I appreciate and the council should appreciate the vote. As to the wastewater treatment 3 operator, once these rates go into effect, which will be 7/1/19, the city will then start collecting the funds that would pay for that position. If the council wishes to direct staff to proceed with getting a wastewater treatment plant 3 officer, the first thing I would tell you is I'm presently waiting to see if one of our employees who took the test passes, because based on the memorandum of understanding of personnel rules, that employee would then move automatically to that position. We have in the preliminary budget that I'll be presenting at your next meeting, funding for a wastewater treatment plant 3 operator, and another position if in fact our own employee moves to the 3, that will open up another position which we would then begin recruiting for. As soon as we knew what the results were for tonight and we get council authorization to proceed, which could come as early as your next meeting when we present the budget.
All right, thank you. Does that help with the discussion item?
When are we going to have a wastewater 3 operator in place? Which is what the council directed.
So my understanding is that the wastewater 3 test does take a couple of months to hear back whether the results are.
This isn't about favoring an employee on staff. We are in trouble with the state of California and water resources.
Point of order. This doesn't have anything to do with the discussion before us right now. This has to do with
It
rates.
does exactly. I want to know, we have all voted to have a wastewater operator in place, 7/1.
So, City Manager Johnson, I think effectively did cover the discussion piece at this time. So there are plans in place to do the hiring for that or to have that other employee take that. Unfortunately, the city council members can't interject when it does come into a personnel issue like that. So there are discussions at the union side as well as previous discussions between the staff.
There's
So-
no need to interject. We said 7/1.
I would also like to point out that it's a budgetary issue, and that will be on the agenda for June 6th, because we need to adopt the budget in a timely order. So it is fast becoming a point of order to discuss, so I think it will be covered then.
We know there's no budgetary issue.
Is there a
We act
motion to
favorably
approve
tonight.
resolution?
I'd like to move to adopt resolution 2019-13 to increase rates for sewer utility services to be effective July 1st, 2019,
I second
with
that.
an annual increase for the next 5 years by title only.
All right, there's been a motion. Is there a second?
There's a second.
All right, is there a comment on the motion at hand? Councilmember Artis, do you have a comment on the motion?
No, because the motion
All right.
agrees with the council's
Are there any
direction.
other comments on the motion? Seeing none, we'll move into a vote. All those in favor of approving resolution 2019-13 to increase the rates for sewer utility services to be effective July 1, 2019, with annual increases for the next 5 years by title only. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
This would be a roll, wouldn't it, since you're raising
Not
it?
spending any money.
We're not spending, aye.
Okay, aye.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We will now move on to our second public hearing tonight, which will be for our solid waste rates. So the city went through a similar 2018 process for the garbage solid waste service rates for an increase in those services. So I will now call the public hearing to order, and I will call for the staff report related to the solid waste rates.
Being a staff person who wasn't here to do all of that, I would say your staff report was very well done. What you just said. We had a year-long process going through this, as I understand it. We had a professional company put together the report. It's been reviewed by everyone. This is the next step.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council on the staff report? Again, please wait to express your opinions and comments until after the public comment section. Councilmember Arthur, question.
Because this is sort of a quasi-enterprise fund, that is, we retain the waste hauler Clemens. Clemens gives the city a contract with rates. And all we do is the billing. City of Mount Shasta just went through a franchise operation where the city does nothing other than collect a franchise fee. The question is, where are we in the situation of having an outdated contract with Clemens and no new contract?
So the item at hand is the 2018 process regarding the feasibility study and solid waste service rates. The item at hand is not a negotiation of contract.
Not a negotiation, but do we have a contract with the cost causer or not?
Yes, currently.
All right,
It's for what period of time?
so it's this fiscal year, correct?
This fiscal year.
Correct.
And when was that signed? Oh, wait, for this fiscal year?
Their current fiscal year we're in right now,
And when does it expire?
6/30.
That is June 30th this year.
Right.
Thank you.
But to clarify, there are typically one-year addendums to those to move forward, so it's not like the service will stop. Just to clarify that. So are there any other questions for staff regarding the 218 solid waste feasibility? All right. We will now move to public comment. This is the opportunity for people in the general comment to come up and talk about the 218 process, the solid waste rate feasibility study, or anything else related to those two things. Seeing none, we will close the public comment and now move into directing the city clerk and to count the number of qualified and unqualified ballots.
Yeah, they're done.
All right, thank you. So, John, if I have this correctly, so we asked for the number of parcels that.
I would ask, how many parcels are served?
1,277.
And how many protests do you have?
All qualified.
And none of the protests were disqualified, so it's a total of 12 protests, whether they're duplication or not. Okay.
All right, thank you. So, on that announcement, I declare that the protests are insufficient, so we will now move to council discussion and consideration of resolution number 2019-14. Councilman Doherty.
I would like to point out that the fact that we moved quickly through this was not that we weren't concerned about the people this is going to be rough on. We took that into consideration, and I believe that everybody that worked on this particular committee worked their best to come up with a way to do what we can do right now. There are plenty of other things down the line that we can do, including obviously at the top of that list is green waste, and there are other things that we can do down the line in terms of the contract. But for the moment right now, with the need to do this in order to avoid any substantial increases down the line if we dally, I would just like to say that I felt good about the fact that we as a community looked at the information together, we talked about it, and we came to an understanding, and the 12 votes that were cast, I think, is testament to the fact that we're working together as a community. That's all.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on the Prop 218 or resolution number 2019-14? Councilmember Arthur.
Well, Councilmember Keisler and I are anxious to get started leading the Public Works Committee. In the domain of the Public Works Committee is the contract and cleanliness and all the issues that we decided to tackle in our group. We did not tackle green waste. We did not tackle costs and cost effectiveness. We did not tackle anything other than getting the rates in place and adjusted upwards so we're fiscally healthy. So I really hope in the weeks and months ahead that we keep faith with the people that are looking for more cost-effective service, that are looking for a broader spectrum of services. All of the work of the Fire Safe Group falls right into the contract requirements. So we have work to do as we're raising their rates, and I hope we do it. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion on the Prop 218 for the solid waste rates? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve resolution number 2019-14.
I would make a motion for you, but there's no comment on it.
You already did public comment.
Okay. Yeah, I make a motion, but I don't think we have no comment on it. You open the
Yeah.
floor? You did?
There was no comment. She called in, but nobody commented.
Okay, you're right, nobody came, I'm not used to this, okay. I would like to make a motion to adopt resolution 2019-14 by title only. Or you want to read the whole thing?
You should probably say this.
Setting new rates to be effective July 1st, 2019, with an annual increase for the next 5 years by title only.
Thank you. There's been a motion presented. Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion at hand? Seeing none, we'll move it to a vote. All those in favor of approving resolution number 2019-14, setting new rates to be effective July 1, 2019, with annual increases for the next 5 years by title only. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Madam Mayor, before we move on, I would like to also thank both Mark Brannigan and Paul Ruder for all the support that they gave us in getting through this process. They made it possible, and I want to thank them.
And the people, too.
Yay. And thank you, John. We pay you a lot. You don't have to stay.
That's music to my ears.
Drive safe,
You don't pay me enough.
drive safe.
All right.
That's
Thank you.
what I would say if I were you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll move on to item number 8, which is old business. We have no old business on the agenda. Moving to new business, item number 9A is the acceptance of a bid from Framau Environmental Services, Inc., $14,943.40 to remove possibly hazardous materials from the Public Works building, and I will open it up with City Manager Johnson.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Apparently for some time, the materials had been stored at the Public Works building. A lot of the materials were removed from the engine house when it was dismantled. Other materials there have come from operation of Public Works yard. So we have oils, old paints, and things of that nature. Anyway, we were visited by the county health department apparently some time ago and given them an amount of time to remove the materials. Of course, we exceeded that amount of time, and now they're telling us to get rid of them right away. And I can't recommend it more than yes. These are one of those things you just have to do. It's the cost of doing business. So we would recommend that we accept the bid, which was obtained by our Public Works supervisor, and authorize the work to be done.
All right, thank you. Are there any clarifying questions from staff at this time before we move to public comment?
Did the city make any effort from Southern Pacific to Union Pacific to the various tenants I mean, is this really on the city's public works department? It's their stuff? Whose stuff is it? And why
And
are the taxpayers paying for all of it?
therein lies the issue. It's, at this point in time, difficult, if not impossible, for staff to say where it came from, because through the years, the school district was there for its bus operation, Clemens was there for its trucks for trash hauling, and these were all things the city actually accepted rent for. And if they left these materials, they left these materials. It should have been cleaned out then at the time that they moved. So there's a lot of not doing things in a business-like way, and the city ended up with these materials. At this point, there's no option. We need to get rid of them. And we can't point a finger at any one source or whatever. A lot of the labels that might have been on the barrels and on the other cans of stuff, labels are gone. It's just too long a process.
Did you have any other questions, Councilmember Hart?
No, the rest I'll say was a comment.
Thank you. Any other questions from council?
No. I just wanted to clarify that this is a one-time, we will be done with this, or hazardous.
The majority of this. On the other hand, the city will of course be accumulated used oil and things like that as we change oil in our vehicles in the future. So there'll be a point of time when we have to remove these again, and that will be budgeted and
Okay,
planned.
so is there a policy in place to manage it going forward?
No. It's the duty of the public works supervisor to see to this and budget for it and arrange for it. If he does it on a regular basis, and the law is you have to remove this stuff annually, the cost will be well within budget limitations, yes.
Thank you.
I do have a question. Has the city looked into not doing their own oil changes and going to a facility that could just handle the oil changes and disposal of that? Sorry.
Jiffy Lube.
Has the city looked into going to someone else and contracting with like a local auto body shop so that they would take care of that? Or have we looked into recycling the materials with Siskiyou County?
I have no idea,
Okay,
but I'd be happy to ask that question.
okay. Yeah, Councilmember.
The memo does not say out of which city fund these dollars will be coming from. Which city fund will these dollars be coming from?
I'll figure that out after you authorize the payment, but we'll make sure that there's money to do it, because it will definitely be coming out of the public works budget.
That would be the general fund.
Yes.
Thank you.
If I could figure out a way to charge somebody else, we would have done that.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, we will now move into public comment. This is again the time that you have 3 minutes to address the council on the item at hand, which is a bid from the Environmental Services Company and the disposal of the hazardous materials. Seeing none, anyone?
I will say
Okay.
that I really certainly hope that we won't ever see this situation happen again. Like, the EPA is clear about these kind of things, like, we have a responsibility to dispose of our stuff just like the right way. And I think I kind of find it shocking that we had all this stuff, that we can't even identify whose it was and how long we had it. And that you mentioned that they were paying rent to dump their stuff there, and that just seems like really bad business to me. I hope that I don't foresee that will happen again.
Can we have your name real quick?
Oh, I'm sorry, Carol Sherman.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else who wants to come up and address the council on the matter at hand? Seeing none, we will now move into discussion. Councilmember Keisler.
I'd like to respond to Ms. Carroll. We didn't charge them to dump. We rented them the buildings that are not there anymore. So when they tore the buildings down, all that stuff went cleared out from all the people that we've been, just like a landlord. We got the mattress, we got the refrigerator full of food. That's what happened. So we're trying to find a way that never happens again. And we gotta clean house.
And I think Councilmember Bryan brought up a really good point that we should probably follow through with lease agreements that have certain things in there for cost recovery, so.
We don't have the buildings anymore.
Yeah. Well,
Don't worry about it.
they'll help. Anyway, is there any other discussion on the item at hand? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to accept the bid from Freemile Environmental Services, Inc. of $14,943.40 to remove and dispose of possible hazardous materials from the Public Works building.
All right, there's been a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second, is there any discussion on the motion at hand? Councilmember Art?
Well, I'm gonna vote no,
Okay,
because I've been in the community long enough, and when I was serving on the council 10 years ago, it was stupid then. The city takes an old building from the railroad. The railroad owns the property, the city leases the building for $1 a year. $1 a year. The lease obligations are for the tenant to keep the building absolutely clean and safe. And now, out of the general fund that we're having a hard time balancing, we're paying $225, $157 an hour. And if it was all the city's waste, that would be bad enough. But most of it is from other parties. They're all getting off scot-free. And I'd like to know how we're gonna prevent this ever happening again, because the city owns a lot of properties. And the city needs to start having a regimen where we don't do stupid leases that leave the citizens holding the bag. This is a lot of money. Thank you.
is there any other discussion, Councilmember Kessler?
I would concur with the second part, but a no would leave the city liable. I would like to reiterate that we're talking about hazardous materials that are 100 feet from the river, and I assure you, Mr. Hart, the fine is way more than that. Way more, probably 10 times more. So
I don't disagree with you.
All right, so there's a motion at hand and a second. Is there any other discussion from council? Seeing none, we'll move into a roll call vote. Councilmember Deutsch, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Ryan?
Aye.
Councilmember Keisler?
absolutely.
Councilmember Art?
No.
And then myself is an aye. Motion carries. We'll now move on to our next new business item, item 9B, which is the amendment to the August 23rd, 2013 engineering agreement with Pace Engineering, which would be increasing certain costs for provisions of wastewater contact operation hours for the wastewater treatment plant. Interim City Manager.
Thank you very much. Getting back to your wastewater operator 3 responsibilities, these are presently being performed by PACE, and what they're showing here is they want an increase in the basic fee for that operator on a month-to-month basis. I would just tell you up front, going from 5,000 to 6,000, the bills have been closer to 16,000, 12,000, and numbers like that on a monthly basis for her to do all of those required things. And those things have been increasing significantly as state law changes. And as you amend or improve your wastewater treatment plant, which you have another grant to do shortly, the need for a wastewater treatment plant 3 operator just increases. Will you save a bunch of money by doing that? Probably. On the other hand, you're still going to have base overseeing the operations significantly.
All right, thank you. Are there any clarifying questions from the council regarding this item? Councilmember Keisler?
I remember when Homeview walked away, we brought Pace in, and it was $3,000 a month, and now we're at 216. Well, we need to get our own dude. We need to get our own operator 3. I would emphasize that.
Not 6, 12 to 16.
It's increasing from $5,000 to $6,000 a month per month.
What you have been paying, because this says this is the basic fee, but you also see there's other fees for additional work that is being done by PACE operators, not necessarily just one person. And those bills on a monthly basis far exceed the basic fee. So all you're guaranteeing them is the basic fee and you're also adopting that rate schedule that's attached to this.
So no matter what they show me, they're getting $6,000, they get no more.
Correct.
I would tell you that you're not doing anything different by adopting this than what you've been doing before.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Are there any other questions? All right, seeing none, we'll now open this up for public comment. Who would like to come up and address the council on the proposed amendment to the Pace Engineering Agreement to increase cost for wastewater treatment operations? Seeing none, we'll now move into council member discussion. We'll put that for anyone who wants to comment. Council member Art.
Well, so we're clear with Councilmember Keisler, the memo said we're going from 5 to 6. In actuality, the cost of these services has exceeded the monthly estimate offered to the tune of 2 times, almost 3 times. So every day that we don't have the wastewater 3 operator in place, we are wasting dollars from our ratepayers for services that are way
That's
in
an inaccurate statement. Peter, that's an inaccurate statement.
Tell me how.
Because we hear $6,000. I don't care if it was $12,000, that's on you. You're only getting $6,000.
No.
That's what you just said.
No, so
You said-
$6,000 is the base, but they can charge for other services that are rendered when they're on site.
And that can be how much?
12 to 16,000.
Correct.
May I clarify one point? This base is not just for grade 3 operator activities. It's for things that PACE is doing that include the grade 3 operator. They come out with more than just one person often to the plant because there are things to do that our staff is not licensed, certified to do. PACE has personnel who are. So they're doing a lot of things out there, but most of this is grade 3. If we had a grade 3 operator, would it reduce this? Yes. But it's not going to eliminate those costs that they're charging entirely.
Yeah, so for example, if you take a look at their hourly rates.
Yeah, I got it now.
Labor class, they have surveyors.
All I'm saying is they want to increase from $5,000 to $6,000 a month.
Correct.
That's what I'll give you.
Yep.
Then you want to turn the page and say, oh, then we want 12, 8.
They haven't told you how much they charge every time you say their name.
Sure want to food business.
Yeah. Well, PACE has told us on a number of occasions they don't want to fill the wastewater 3 position anymore. They want us to get our own person to be
Well,
up here.
if I may, it goes further than that. The state, as Peter mentioned before, is saying that to PACE and saying that to the city. And
Correct.
with the complications of the plant you have out there and disposing to water, they want a grade 3 operator on site on a daily basis to see things, not just come in periodically and prepare reports and sign reports and send them off to the state. That's the basis of the issue.
Thank you, Randy.
And my understanding is that once we do have the wastewater tech, that this agreement does get altered, that we would not have to be doing the base 6,000.
Yeah, the overall total was estimated to be 50,000 back towards us for having our own.
Okay. All right, is there any other discussion on the matter at hand? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to accept and approve amendment number 1 to August 23rd, 2013, engineering agreement with PACE Engineering, increasing certain costs, provision of wastewater contract operations and services for the wastewater treatment plant.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion at hand?
One more question. How long are we going with this deal?
Can't be.
How long is the duration of this new patch?
The original contract has no termination point, so it would be terminated either by the council or by PACE under a termination process that's in there, and I don't know what that is.
I would far prefer 30 days or 60 days, because if it's open-ended, this will just go on and on at the expense of our ratepayers.
And again, I'm saying that based on, I think, I don't know.
Are there any comments on the motion at hand, which is to approve the amendment? Seeing none, we'll move into a roll call vote. Councilmember Deutsch, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Bryan?
Aye.
Councilmember Keisler?
Aye.
Councilmember Arth?
Aye.
And myself is an aye. Motion carries.
Yeah, you're getting pretty good at hammer girl.
I realized I was maybe a little remembering it. It's already been moved back to my head a couple of times. So we'll now move on to item number 9C, which is the amendment increasing monthly fee for provision of professional building inspection services to the city of Dunsmuir. It's a great day to be here and just watch the money just.
Would you like to make this report since you know more about it than I did?
Yeah, so, so a request has come back to us from our contracted building inspector, Dave Smith, Building Contract Inspection Services. Mr. Smith is, I don't believe he ever reduced the city of Dunsmuir's fees, but during the recession, Mr. Smith did reduce the fees of a number of different cities that he serves as a contract building inspector. So he, I believe, inspects right now for the city of Mount Shasta, city of Dunsmuir, city of Shasta Lake, and city of Wairika. So he is asking all of the cities for an increase in his contract. As I said before, the city of Mount Shasta, there was a decrease during the recession. But for the city of Dunsmuir, I don't think he's ever asked for an increase in a number of years. And so this would be him finally adjusting his fees to the current rates that he is charging every other city. Building inspectors are very hard to come by around here, and so Dave is pretty much the only one we need. So that's kind of the report. And is there any questions for staff on the staff report regarding the increase in monthly fee for professional building inspections? Seeing no questions, we'll move.
What is the term of this deal?
This is 1 year.
1 year.
I would say his contract is open-ended, just to coin the phrase that I heard a moment ago.
Well, I would point out, it says amendment to the city Dunsmuir agreement, professional services dated March 16, 2007. So this is a contract that goes back to 2007, has been amended along the way. First amendment.
It says from 17 to 1817 annually. That's every year.
City clerk, would you like to elaborate?
Only comment, he has never asked for an increase. This is the first.
This is the first amendment.
Yeah.
The contract that we're continuing to use is from 2007.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's some due diligence to be done, but not tonight.
Correct. Any questions before we move to public comment? Seeing none, we'll move to the public comment section for the item of the increase in services, increasing cost for building inspector services. Seeing none, we will now move to council discussion. Is there any discussion on the matter? Councilmember Keisler?
We gotta have this guy who keeps our houses from burning down. There are two
Yeah.
in the game, but
And I know that Mr. Smith is close to retirement, is my understanding. It's not my place to say when he's gonna do that or not, but I know that we will need to discuss this item in the next year or so, and start thinking about other options.
but no, he's an asset to the city, so
Correct.
I would have to make this motion unless there's other discussion.
I would simply like to comment that this increase is far less than consumer price index increases over the same day. So we've effectively been paying, on average, 3% less each year till now, and now we're catching up. So relative to what the city's received, it's been very favorable to the city.
And then the nice thing about this at least is that the majority of the costs associated with the building inspector are recouped when we do have people building or doing any modifications that require a building permit.
Madam Mayor, may I? I move to accept and approve amendment increasing basic monthly fees for provisions of professional building inspector services to the city of Dunsmuir and authorize city manager to execute this amendment.
All right, there's a motion at hand. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any questions regarding the motion at hand, Councilmember Ark?
What, I'm making an assumption, looking at the finance committee chair, that maybe we shouldn't make, and that is Dave Smith increases his billing to the city do we offset that 100%, 110% under 218? Are we adjusting the building inspection fees so this is revenue neutral?
Historically, we come very close to 100%, and it's all dependent on how many applications for permits come in. And you know, there's not a whole lot of building going on in Dunsmuir and Growth, but there are a lot of remodels, there are a lot of things that need his review. You have plan check and these other things going on that he arranges for. No, it's not 100% reimbursed, but it's real close.
But are we gonna bump them, or we'll track this bump?
When was the last time we raised building permit fees?
I have no idea.
So the building permit fees are actually based off of a calculation of the square footage and among other things that are happening in that building permit. We don't technically need to really go in and adjust those fees, he'll do that for us. So there's no 218 process or anything like that associated with these types of fees. So
Actually, most of the codes are in the Uniform Building Code, which is set by state law and adopted by reference by the city council. There are certain sections in there where you could add
like
regulations you want, but normally not fee related. So,
But it seems like the city would pass on an inspector increase to the cost.
Correct, yeah.
And that's all I'm asking is, are we doing that?
Yeah, he probably gets between like 80% to 100% reimbursed by the people getting a building permit.
Because he direct bills them or the city bills for them?
Well, it says in payment of services under item 6 that the compensation rate to the contractor shall be 60% of the building permit fees collected by the city, with the city retaining 40% of these fees. So the question in detail comes down to whether that 40% covers the 18,700 all told. And obviously that's going to change depending on volume.
But you
I
typically.
believe our city manager was speaking to that and he said it comes close.
yeah, it has historically come close. And again, I'm not saying it's 100% because one year it probably wasn't, the next year we may have retained more. It just depends on the activity.
What you pay the city?
Yeah, the city, you're paying the city building permit and then the city bills, or sends it to me.
It's an interesting way to do business.
They technically can't accept cash or money. Just with the city.
I think it should be an excellent subject for the finance committee to take up in the budget.
It's something we
Preparation side.
All right, so there's a motion at hand to approve the amendment to increase the monthly fee for the provision of professional building inspection services to the city of Dunsmuir. And there was a second. Is there any other question about the motion at hand? Seeing none, we'll move into a roll call vote. Councilmember Deutsch? Councilmember Bryan? Councilmember Keisler?
Aye.
Councilmember Art?
Aye.
And myself is an aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
Has he ever lit that cigar or is that the
He used
original
to.
cigar?
He used to, but he does not anymore. He eats it now.
Eats it.
I've never seen it.
Moving on.
Anyway, we'll now move on to our final piece of new business, which is to authorize fire chief to proceed with work part of goals and objectives of community facilities direct loan and grant program upon receipt of funds or authorization to proceed and be reimbursed.
The list of projects that the
Madam Mayor, I would make a motion that we take a couple-minute recess because I'm sure everybody's listening about fire and grant and money right now, so.
Well, it's going away now.
Yeah, we're almost done.
To summarize this, the chief has found a program where he possibly can get monies to make improvements to the fire station that have been needed forever. There's several reports through the years that have said things need to be done, and they've done them on a piecemeal basis. This would allow a lot of the work to get done without costing the city any money, hopefully. So
Thank you.
the question before you is whether you authorize the fire chief to spend time putting this together.
Are there any questions for the staff report at this time?
I just have a point of order. I thought the fire chief worked for you in that capacity. Do they work directly for the city council in the nature of the attorney work?
That's true, but not, we want to the council to be a part of this process.
This is
So
kind
this
of,
is a very positive process, and we want everybody to take ownership.
it's more of like a blessing to go forward.
Yeah,
Because
for sure.
we haven't set this building as a priority yet, at all. So yeah.
He wants to take care of the house,
Yeah.
just take care of the boys.
All right, seeing no other questions, we will now move into public comment. Anyone who would like to give a public comment may do so at this time. Seeing none, I will close the public comment and move to discussion. I think it's a good idea, the fire chief talked to me about it as well, wanting to come here and get our blessing to do this. It would also go to improvements of this room to make it a little bit quieter, so that's nice.
Leave this, you want.
So, is there any other comments from the council on this item, or is there a motion at hand?
I move to authorize the fire chief to proceed with work to part goals, objectives, and community facilities, direct loan, and grant program upon receipts of funds or authorization to proceed and be reimbursed.
I second it.
All right, there's been a motion, a second. Are there any questions related to the motion at hand? Seeing none, we'll now move into a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Go for it.
Go for it.
Yay! All right,
Good luck.
thank you. Moving on to item number 10, reports on attendance at outside meetings. Councilmember Heisler, do you have a report?
Actually, as most people know, I sit on the board of directors for the League of California Cities. I represent Siskiyou, Shasta, Modoc, and Lassen County. And every month we have a phone-in conference, sometimes a couple times a month, we discuss issues. But this time it was kind of like a mandatory field trip. It was a wake and bake for me. We got invited to go to Paradise, California, and tour the aftermath. And I took Matthew, I took Lynn Shimmy, and I took Arlene Dinges. And I'm so glad that I took those three people with me, because they're much better in words to describe what we saw. It could happen to us so, it could happen to us so freaking fast that it is scary. So, Matthew, would you like to say a couple?
I would just like to share with our community that it was a very sobering experience. When you look out as far as the eye can see, there's these old chimneys that are made out of brick, and they're standing out because they didn't burn down. And in front of each one of them, as if they're the gravestones, laid out this rectangular shape, maybe an old car half seen there. And it's row upon row. And we drove around for miles, and that vision presented itself everywhere. It was endless. Clearly, it was a challenge no community is ready to face. When we talked to the people, the town officials, they were in fairly good shape for responding to it. But we need to be aware that we're in danger and that the situation we're in requires us to plan for the disaster. Preparation should be focused on preventing it, but preventative measures, if we spend our entire budget for 3 years, couldn't stop a wildfire like that. So we need to be prepared for our response in the case of a disaster. And I'd like to commend the Disaster Planning Commission, or Committee, for the work they've done. I think it's very important for the chair to be there seeing that. And we're hoping to support them in their efforts to prepare Dunsmuir for an unfortunate disaster and hopefully get to the point where someday we're doing preventative measures.
See what I mean? It's kind of good words. But in reality, that's what we saw. Randy Johnson's house. It kind of looked like this phone about that flat in black. The aftermath. The one thing, well, there's two things I will emphasize. We're a little town, we're in a canyon, and the freeway's right here. But if the fire and smoke is so bad that you can't tell if it's day or night, you can't see the freeway. You can't see. The mayor, we're on a bus touring, and a mayor said, "You see this intersection?" We actually stopped in the intersection, just a split second. And ain't much bigger than this room. She says, my daughter-in-law, my 9-year-old daughter, granddaughter, were hugged together with 23 30 other people in this intersection because they couldn't tell which way to go and they were afraid. Can you imagine?
Another story that we all need to hear, because to understand the level of disaster that this was, a school bus caught on fire on the way out.
Oh,
And the children were rushed out of the school bus and put into any passing car that went by. Everyone was reunited by midnight, but those parents had to experience 8 hours, upwards of 8 hours, not knowing. And yet, that was the right thing to do in that moment, because all safeguards for this sort of disaster had broken down for that few hours. So these are things we need to be ready for. It's unfortunate to think about them, but the more planning we do for our response, the stronger we'll be in such a.
this fire happened at 6:33 in the morning. They are so lucky because they pretty much had the day. If it had been night, they wouldn't be here. And there were 85 lives lost, 1 child, a lot of old people.
It's still an identified majority for some of them.
This is a wake-up call. We went, we come back, we're trying to emphasize these people, this is what we saw. So, there might be time to, let's really look at some green waste, let's look at some, you know, I want to talk about a chipper later on. There's things that we got to do, but it's time for us to wake up as a community. And if you got that lazy neighbor, he needs some pushing. Let somebody know, because people can be pushed. We're not going to burn up. Thank you.
Yeah, this relates to unfortunate things. Zoning, enforcing people to take care of their properties better would have had a great deal of mitigating effect on the town. So, you know, no one wants to have to be forced to do this or that, but these measures, when adopted by all, can help a great deal in mitigating the effects of a disaster.
And also going to help your neighbor who may not be able to.
Thank you for going with me, and thank the other people that went. I was glad to have you guys on my team.
Just as a reminder, the Disaster Planning Advisory Committee agenda packet is out right now. They will be meeting next week, Thursday. I believe at 6 o'clock is the time for that. I apologize for not knowing the time off the top of my head. But one of the items is a hazardous vegetation and combustible nuisance ordinance, which Chief Padilla has been talking about. So that is on the agenda for discussion next week. That is open to the public, and we invite people to attend. The county has also just finished their county-wide fire protection plan. So it's similar to the city's CWPP, the Wildfire Protection Plan. So that will be out, and that provides some more information for people who may not live in the city limits of Dunsmuir, just outside the city limits, who are not contained in our CWPP. So there's a lot of information out there. CAL FIRE is also doing a very big push of materials for people to get educated on what their options are, as well as financial resources to assist with that. So we invite people to check those out.
And sorry.
Go ahead.
But if you're old, or you know somebody that's old that might need a hand, do a shout out to a council member. They might be able to help.
Great, thank you. Are there any other outside meetings to discuss? Councilmember Deutsch.
As part of economic development and tourism, the Ford Family Institute has been working for years with the area, and Siskiyou County is one of the areas they work with. The program that we've been working under recently, called the Siskiyou Revitalization Network, just had a series of visits between the different cities. We had created here in Dunsmuir, Richard Dinges and myself working together and reaching out to the community for input, had put together an itinerary for people visiting, sort of a sample or a trial to say, what can we do and how can we put it together. Each of the cities did that, and in the process, we went and visited Mount Shasta. And so we had Richard and myself and David Clarno went and visited Mount Shasta. I won't get into that, although it was a very enjoyable thing. They did a great job putting it on, and we were treated very nicely. But from our standpoint, we had people from Happy Camp come here to Dunsmuir. And last night, we had a meeting in Del Campo Farms, where each of the cities got together. There were about 50 people in the room, so it was really nice. And it was each person, each team sharing their experience and what it was like. And I'll tell you that Dunsmuir got rave reviews. The biggest item was the Botanical Gardens. Ernie Watson came down there and gave a tour. We started off at the wheelhouse, then we went down to the Botanical Gardens, Clallam Valley Park. We went to lunch at the brewery, and then after that, they walked to the hardware store. I know that Ron McLeod gave a little bit of a talk about the history, and then they went to the pop culture. The whole point is that they remarked on just how beautiful the area was. They were blown away by the botanical gardens, so kudos to the people who made that so special. But they also responded that they thought the citizens around here just had this pep and energy and a friendliness that they really commented on. So the good news out of this, above and beyond the experiences I went through, is we're going to be developing more elaborate or complex itineraries so we can get to different audiences down the line. So if you like to go out fishing, or if you like to go out looking at history or whatever it might be, that we'll be able to say if a tourist comes into Dunsmuir, here are your choices, and they can plot out what they're going to do with their family. So that's the goal we're going towards. Oh, I also forgot to mention that the stay at the the stop at the Mossbury Hotel went extremely well. It happened to be that we had just talked about in fact, Richard did just talk several times about the Brewfest coming up. And when the people from Happy Camp, the three of them that were there, and I guess they must have reached out to friends on the phone, but while we were there, they ended up selling out the Mossbury Hotel for that weekend. So Happy Camp is going to be sending a contingent of people down here to be able to party and drink and share in our hospitality. So that's all I have to say, but we're working on developing these relationships with the other cities. And I think we're special here in Siskiyou County to have a network of cities that enjoy working together. We're not in competition. And last night, the 50 people that were there, it was a joyous experience, and everyone had a great energy. And so that's the end of my report.
Okay, thank you. That was really great. Are there any other outside meetings that council members would like to discuss? Seeing none, I'll move into mine really quick. It is related to the aggressive dog issue that people have been talking about. I approached the Humane Society as well as the county animal control offices to discuss what kind of recommendations they would have for next steps for the city to move forward, and are willing to meet with us to discuss partnerships if that's what the city staff, or if that's what the city council and city staff would like to do. Didn't make any promises or anything like that, but they said they would be willing to step in and assist with training or quarantine. One of the big issues the city of Dunsmuir has is we do not have adequate facilities in the city limits to quarantine dogs that do bite people, and that is a concern. And so the Humane Society has been open to helping us with that situation, as well as training and transportation for those things. Unfortunately, the discussion right now is not about stray dogs, but more about aggressive dogs. So stray animals is a huge issue throughout all of Siskiyou County, and the Humane Society and County Animal Control did indicate that they would not be able to pick up the volume of stray animals in the city of Dunsmuir on top of the work that they already have. But aggressive dogs, they would be able to assist with those. So I'm hoping that that will become an item for a future agenda that we can talk about and give the general public some input opportunities, as well as talking about options that we have moving forward. I know this council has discussed hiring an animal control officer again. That may not be budgetarily available to us, but it does sound like there are other services that we could partner with that may be able to get us to the same conclusion. So I did do that outside meeting. Are there any other outside meetings that the council would like to report on? Seeing none, we'll now move into council and staff's comments. I know council has quite a few comments, so I would like to start with staff first, and then we'll come to council. So,
Madam Mayor, I guess another problem I have with the agenda is it seems like we've lost an opportunity for law enforcement to talk on a regular basis.
well, they're staff, so this would be their time for them to talk.
As long as it's explicitly recognized. Actually, you'll learn a lot more about the dog bite thing from the sheriff's office.
So, again, I was gonna go to staff first before council comments, so I was gonna start with the interim city manager. Johnson, do you have any comments for?
Actually, I have no comments at this time. What I've done in the past is put out a weekly report, which has been available to the council and then made available to anybody else who wants to see it. So it kind of categorizes what the staff has been doing during that week, and I will continue to do that.
All right, thank you. Ben, do you have anything you'd like to report?
Yeah, I'll report on first the April statistics, and then I'd like to make a comment or two about the sheriff's office perspective on the animal control issue that's going on down here. So anyways, for the month of April, we had 609 hours patrol time. We had 174 total calls for service that included self-initiated activity. We had 22 cases that we pulled here, 30 traffic stops, 18 citations. We had 9 arrests, 4 were felony and 7 were misdemeanor. Some of the details on those arrests: we had a resisting arrest on Gray Street, driving on suspended license on a traffic stop. We did locate 2.9 grams of methamphetamine on an arrest that occurred on Dunsmuir Avenue on a traffic stop. That subject also had felony warrants. We had a violation of a domestic violence restraining order, 2 arrests on Iskrig, had a domestic violence incident on Siskiyou, and then 1 on Butterfly, and a public intoxication arrest on Butterfly as well. We had 1 burglary to a garage on Dunsmuir Avenue, and 2 thefts that occurred on 1 Siskiyou Avenue and 1 on Florence. No assault and batteries for April or vandalisms. We had 3 trespassings, and then just disturbing the peace calls, which were all over town. Any questions on those for?
Just how close is that garage burglary to my house?
I don't know what the address is. We typically won't share the addresses of these, but I can get that for you if you're probably pretty close since it's on Siskiyou. So, regarding the animal control issue, of course, if anybody's monitoring the Dunsmuir Neighborhood Watch Facebook page, it's a constant narrative of just the concerns about the animal control issue. But I can tell you at this point, it seems that we are almost weekly responding to animal bites from dogs, whether it's on a person or another animal. In fact, 2 times last week we had 2 sets of aggressive pit bulls get out and attack dogs that were being walked by their owners. We're also taking dog bites on humans as well. But it's getting to where in my personal opinion, it's turning into a public safety issue. We're getting, whenever we would go to these dog bite calls, we are getting a very agitated response from the citizens who are wondering why law enforcement is not doing anything about this issue. Now, there's a misconception about what our role is in animal control, and so I try to talk to that, but I just would, and I know the council is aware of this, but I just want to, I guess, emphasize that this is an issue that is really becoming a problem, and we're already at that place. I have in the past reached out to county animal control. They basically gave me the same thing, except for that they're not going to take on Dunsmuir's dogs. The stray dogs, I don't think so, but the aggressive dogs, but the system is still going to break down when it comes to who's going to be taking the dogs to the quarantine. Who is going to be chasing these dogs around. Right now, the contract does not state we're doing animal control. So the sheriff's office has on a deputy street level, we don't have the training, we don't have the tools to deal with dogs. So, stuff like catch pulls, we don't have the training to determine whether a dog is sick or not after the quarantine period. Right now, we have no means to enforce a quarantine other than tell the dog owner of the offending dog, you've got to keep this thing inside for 10 days. If they say we can't do it, we don't want to do it, we don't have the ability to do it, the system falls apart right there, there's nothing that we can do. And then, no,
Really?
yes. The contract says the sheriff's office does not do animal control. We are, however, just to clarify for the council, we are responding to every dog bite call that we get. We're taking a report in most cases. If it involves a dog biting a human, we do take a report, we notify public health. We strongly urge the offending dog owner to quarantine the dog for 10 days, but after that it falls apart. We can't follow up and see whether the dog is sick. We don't have the training for that. So in the event that there was a sick dog, it's gonna fall between the cracks. And granted, I was just recently told by a doctor there hasn't been a reported rabies case from a domesticated animal in this country for like 50 years. So, I mean, the odds of getting rabies from a domesticated dog is, just really down there, but
they do still do some damage.
yes, they do still do some damage, yeah.
I have to understand that there's basically 1 or 2 dogs that are really the problem out there, is that true?
Well, yes and no. I mean, we have a problem with an owner on over on the kind of northern end of town that is doing a poor job at keeping her dogs contained, but it's not, she's not the only one. I mean, there are loose dogs everywhere in this town. And like a couple of citizens have mentioned, you can't go anywhere without a loose, in fact, we had one dog that bit 2 people within I think a 2-week period. One of them was a 14-year-old kid. So it's a big problem. It ranges from the northern end to the southern end of Dunsmuir, and we are going to dog bite calls constantly at this point. So
Do you happen to keep spatial data of all the calls and everything like that? So if and when we do get either a position or a contract with a supplier, we would have a map of points.
I missed the first part of the question.
Spatial data. So like every time we take a report, there's typically a location related to
Yes.
it? Okay.
Yes.
So
And
we would be able to, once we do have someone either on contract or hired under the city, they'd be able to get your old data
yes.
and be able to understand problem areas.
And the city we are also forwarding our dog bite reports to the city as well. So the city
Not
is,
just dogs, I got pigs chasing kids at the elementary school.
I just read about that, yes, that was an interesting
Pigs
read.
are really neat,
They were terrified.
but
I
anyway.
think they were. So, I just, for the public, I want the public to understand that because there is a perception out there that we're not properly responding to animal calls. We absolutely are, and we're responding every time that we get called. But there is a contractual issue here. The primary responsibility for dealing with animal control issues is on the city. There's supposed to be a code enforcement officer and an animal control officer. So, but we are, as a sheriff's office, we are trying to fill the gap in, but the system does fall apart. It just does. And there's nothing, we're not in a position to be able to fix that right now.
I think it does still help for people to report those. 'Cause
Absolutely.
again, once we do have someone on board, it is nice to know these are the problematic areas.
Yeah.
Because if it is coming down to a couple of people ruining it for everyone, it's nice
Well-
to start there with those different neighborhoods that are having the more problematic issues.
Yes, and there are some problematic dogs in the area, but it's not isolated to those. They're everywhere. And I also would like the council to know that I've been personally, I think last week was contacted, I think, by 2 different citizens who were saying that I'm about to shoot a dog.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I can sympathize with the concern there. I mean, I try to direct them away from the activity, but I am at this point suggesting, just because of the size of the dog problem, that people, if they're walking their dogs, you might want to carry some pepper spray. Pepper spray works very well on dogs. You don't even have to spray them. You can just put it in the air next to the dog and they'll take off. But 2 different citizens last week said, I'm about to shoot a dog. So it'd be an extremely dangerous way to deal with a dog anywhere in Dunsmuir because of how concentrated it is here. But that's the level that we are getting to as far as this problem goes.
We appreciate your emphasis.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Julie, do you have anything for staff comments? All right.
Happy to have anything on board. Back again.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. So we'll move on to council comments. Councilmember Harden. Start with you.
Oh, gosh. I've got a point of order real quick. Is this where we would be putting our committee reports?
Yep. Yeah, either in the outside meetings or in council or staff comments. Councilmember Harden?
Well, my first comment is to build on the article in the weekly newspaper where Big Dave has busted his butt to try to keep the community pool open.
Yeah.
And to recognize here's a community leader that says, yes, we can, rather than no, we can't. And thank you very much for doing that.
Yay!
Briefly related to that is sort of like the oil drum. This should never happen again.
No.
We sit under the leadership of the chair of the finance committee. We have $115,000 in TUP funds for fiscal year 1920. And we have a park and rec district. First, they couldn't fix the pool, then they couldn't afford the lifeguards. Now we're passing the hat to train lifeguards. I would say this is a significant failure of communication. So I hope, I don't know if it will happen in this budget cycle, but the Parks and Rec Board, the Dunsmuir Parks and Recs Board needs to send somebody to the Finance Committee so that these funds that are targeted to keep the community pool open, that's what the community wants, and to keep the library open, that's what they want. We need to avoid the Chinese fire drills over, we're letting the citizens down. So I'm glad you went and appeared before them. As we move forward, we've got to improve the communication so no one has to hold their breath as to when the community pool will be open.
Well, there's now a pool, a pool committee, just not the park rec, the pool committee, and I'm on it.
Well, however you can more closely align the resources the taxpayers are paying with the priorities that we've set, the better. Is this the point where we ask for items to go on the next agenda, or is that somewhere else?
You can bring up the item now, that would be fun, because it's kind of built into consideration of future agenda items.
I would like on the next agenda to have a staff cost effectiveness analysis. The chair of finance has already asked for it. For a code enforcement officer, and the action item would be to hire a code enforcement officer full-time beginning July 1, 2019.
Question on that, I understand that there's a distinction between the original plan, which was to hire somebody that was going to be part-time code enforcement and part-time animal control. Are we now looking at just code enforcement, or we want somebody that has both of those skills?
Well, I think the bigger thing is we do have to agendize an item to talk about the item at large, about that type of thing. And again, I would like to reiterate, City Council doesn't hire anyone. So taking action to hire someone would be on the city manager, but the City Council can have an open discussion about these are the things that we need and direct staff to go forward with an action plan. So just to.
And we've been talking about it in the finance committee. We're now to the point where our little group sees the ability to afford half of a code enforcement officer. And yes, there's any number of ways to skin the cat. We could share a position with Mount Shasta. We could do a contract. We could do this and that. But the point is, I hope you've all heard enough to say we need to do something.
Madam Mayor, I echo Peter Hart's request for it to be on the agenda.
Okay, so as we stated in our new protocols, there has to be a second council member to do that, so that'll be considered a second to place code enforcement and animal control on a future agenda item.
And I do. Where did the 60 to 90 days come from?
That's just, that's basically saying the next 2 months worth of items would be on there, and then you have a date on when we can expect them to be coming to the next agenda.
Well, I fully support the citizen that said next agenda. And I hope Mr. Geisler does as well.
Well, okay, so again, it'll be on a future agenda item because there's 2 council members who want it. And so it'll go to staff now to fill that out. The more base information we can give them, the more they can put together a good staff report with all the information that we need to make a decision.
And so you appreciate the connection in budget committee. We are either going to put into our budget a full-time position, a half-time position, or something. We need this decision from the council before our June 6th deadline.
Okay, so we can't make a decision on it tonight or
No, that's
before.
good for tonight.
It's already on the agenda for the finance committee, so we should have a recommendation
Sweet.
Okay.
on it, or just a little presentation from the committee.
So we'll just communicate
There
with
you go.
staff that it'll be on a future agenda item for consideration.
That's where it works.
To be fair, that would only be the financial aspects of it, the regular benefits, that should be done, that are not financial.
Cool. Next item is a grant writer. I promised Chief Padilla, I promised our disaster response committee. We know there are hundreds of millions of dollars available for fire suppression. We asked in Finance Committee, do we have any resources to write a grant, whether it's sidewalks or fire or anything? And the answer is no. Honest answer. We have two positions that we could potentially write a grant, and neither of them really have the time or skills to do it. This is a position that will more than pay for itself. And so I would like to see, again, options from the staff with the notion from FEMA assisting Arlene Dinges and the rest of the staff in our FEMA compliance to other grant opportunities in the area of fire safety, grant opportunities for public works, grant opportunities for economic development.
So you're requesting a future agenda item discussing grant writing. Is there, yeah. Is there a second to put grant writing as an agenda item on a future agenda?
I second it for discussion. I think it's very important to look at every source of revenue we can find for the city.
Did I know something like that? Okay, I have one comment while we're on that.
So again, it's, okay.
Go ahead.
Quick.
City manager, after what my police chief has said here tonight, I feel there's an emergency situation in Dunsmuir. We're at the point of catastrophe. Is there a way we could write a grant for emergency code enforcement or emergency dog catcher? Has it ever been done? Is it possible? I mean, the city gets to the point where we're in such dire.
It's pretty difficult to find a grant that
Yeah,
funds.
they write grants for everything. Can it be done?
Probably not. Again, the grants that are available for positions, the only one that I'm familiar that will fund a position specifically are the safer grants, which is firefighters. So there isn't like a grant pot that says this can be used for personnel related to code enforcement or animal control that I have seen. You can usually apply for grants for equipment, for structural improvements, but as far as personnel, there aren't really any grants that are like that. Most likely, when you're talking about a code enforcement officer or an animal control officer, those costs that are incurred by those individuals are put onto the people that they're citing, for the most part. But a majority of that is gonna have to come from the general fund. So basically my answer to you is no, they're typically not personnel grants related to animal control or code enforcement.
That sucks.
That's just, it'll pay for, like I said, you can find stuff for equipment, you can find stuff for vehicles, you can find stuff for structures, but as far as paying for an individual position to be there, that doesn't really exist for those two topic items.
Well, that's right.
I know, I'm sorry.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Reality.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we have grant writing as a future topic for discussion, code enforcement and animal,
The next, well,
Councilmember Arthur.
the next item is, I do think you had unfairly denied the opportunity for us to look at the public works resolution I prepared last
I
week.
did send you an email saying that it just got forgotten, it's going on a future agenda item,
And which agenda would that be?
probably the next one. Depending on how many items we have at this point, we've got agenda presentation, we have a couple of other things that are going on, and this meeting is already being a nice long one. But I do have your resolution in the report, and it'll go on a future agenda item. It was sent to me, and I was traveling, and then we also had Randy coming on board, and so it got forgotten.
I would also like to point out that the next meeting will be the first presentation of the budget, likely with adoption at the next meeting, if not at that meeting. There's going to be a lot entailed in the budget alone. So I do think, as much as I'm interested in all these other topics and their input to the city, focusing in on something as important as the budget might be something we can spend our time on in the very next 2 meetings.
And I'll simply make the point, as you know, we spent a fair amount of time in Finance Committee on sidewalks. An identified priority of the city is fixing the sidewalks. Until the Public Works Committee is up and running, we know we have no plan for fixing the sidewalks. How much money are we gonna allocate in the new budget, 1920, to fix the sidewalks?
So again, it will be on a future agenda item. Do you have any other comments?
I do. Also in Finance Committee,
Great.
so on, do we know how many vacation by owner rentals we have in Dunsmuir? Do we know how many Airbnbs we have in Dunsmuir? Do we know how many have gotten a business license? How many are paying the transit occupancy tax?
All Airbnb ones are automatic.
Nothing's automatic.
Yes, it is. We get a check from Airbnb that's taken out from HTOT, it's automatic, and we get a check from them.
So I think the point that's being made is what is,
You know, some people's staff doesn't.
so again,
She's the one who put it in place.
We talked about this at great length, but Airbnb itself is being collected, we clarified it at the finance committee as well. The other ways in which you could rent out on a temporary basis your homes, Craigslist probably being the greatest example of unregulated sales. There is no means of collecting that. A code enforcement officer could be assigned, it seems like that would be within his job description, but that would go under that other future agenda item. But I think it's part of that. It's a way in which a code enforcement officer could benefit the city and even the playing field for second homes that are renting themselves out on a temporary basis.
We know we're losing revenues and we have an uneven playing field for our local government.
Well, the reason it's uneven, Peter, I'd like to point out, is because we're starting to collect well over half, one would assume, because Airbnb is the most popular form of booking sites. So Airbnb is collecting, so it's uneven towards fairness to the city, and we hope to bring it all up to a point where it's fair to the city and to relative citizens.
And I'd love to see the staff work that says we're actually collecting from Airbnb.
Well,
If that doesn't come up with.
ask her, she's right next to you.
We collect from Airbnb
Monthly.
monthly,
Yeah,
and
we
the
went
checks
over-
are large.
We went over this sheet at one point. But we can do it again. I think that it is a problem and that people who are not renting on Airbnb aren't necessarily paying the 10% or 12% tax.
It needs to be more transparent so I can go back to the owners of the Mossbury Hotel and say, see, in fact, it is fair.
Well, given the phenomenon, I'd love to have eventually a policy just laying out to someone in the city that can see that. I get asked that people considering founding an Airbnb or a vacation home. What does the city require? Well, you know, it does require that the tax, depending on which site, the process looks different. So we should look into that.
And the last is a question, are we gonna have a special meeting on the airport or no?
yep, I believe it's scheduled for Monday the 20th,
5 p.m.
5 p.m.
Okay, that's it?
All right, Councilmember Keisler, do you have anything else?
Yeah.
Other comments?
I'm gonna go backwards. When Bruce was talking about people coming to town, he mentioned two people, he mentioned Ernie, he mentioned Ron. I'd like to remind people that the Citizen of the Year dinner is coming up, and both those gentlemen, the Citizen of the Year is Ernie Watson, and the Alexander Dunsmuir Award is gonna go to our lovely Ron McLeod. Also at that dinner, we'll be celebrating the Business of the Year, which is the dog pet food store, and then the nonprofit, which is Nicole Hicks's cat, Saving Shasta Cats. So I commend all these people on their hard efforts and their achievements. I wanted all night to say something to that lady that came and made a statement at the podium about the dog bites. After everything that was said on Facebook, I was expecting 20 people here with bats and pitchforks and one dude with a loaded gun. That's what they said. But this one lady, I don't know what she did, she took it upon herself, she came with some elegant words that kind of lit us all on fire. I want to thank her for that, and the way she did it was admirable. I commend her.
Her name is Carrie.
Carrie, good job.
Carrie.
And then, I really do want to emphasize the fact that I'm behind, well, one more, attaboy, Brian Wilson. The man's been out there in the rain, setting, fixing sidewalks, setting stones and making these sidewalks look beautiful on his hands and knees in the mud. I really enjoy and I'm honored to have a city employee work that hard for the city that I represent sitting up here. So I commend Brian Wilson. Two things that I'm behind anyone here that sits up at this table in this arena with me, this city needs a code enforcement officer, and we need wastewater-free person. One's gonna help the city, and one is gonna save the city a lot of money in the long run. So however we do it, whether we do it as a team or one person puts it together, brings it to, whatever. I want everybody to know I'm behind hiring both of them tomorrow, but yeah, we need them.
Thank you.
So, and thank you for letting me say that.
Hello, Brian?
Yeah, I'd like to go last.
Okay, Councilman Deutsch?
I'd like to give an update on the Neighborhood Watch Committee. So we had a small meeting at last Thursday, and what we decided to do, we're going to be working with the Family Fun Night that the Family Resource Center is putting on Friday the 31st. And so there'll be barbecue and games and all kinds of other things down at the ballpark. And at the same time, we're going to have a booth there for Neighborhood Watch. The goal is to get as many signups as possible. We've already turned over the information we have to the Resource Center, so they'll be the ones that will be putting in the database and keeping that up to date, both to help us out and also to form that connection between them knowing what's going on and who's out there, et cetera. But our major goal will be to identify block captains in the various neighborhoods that have not yet, to this point, had somebody volunteer to be a block captain. The goal after that, then, if we can get those filled up by asking people to come to this Family Fun Night and make sure they're signed into the Neighborhood Watch, and if they volunteer to be a block captain, we'll bring them back here for our next meeting, which will be the second Thursday of the month of June, and we will start training them and working on the process of developing an actual cohesive set of teams. So that's kind of the game plan we have going for that right now. Other than that, my one comment would be, I understand all of the fervor about the animal control. I know when I was mayor last year, I tried as best I could to find a solution. Everybody's been pretty much finding the same solution, which is none at this point. I know that I asked Mark Brannigan if we could find a way to, maybe just have somebody come in for a couple of weeks and round up all the dogs, and we didn't find a bite on that one, if you got that. But I'm serious, and I understand that I read the Neighborhood Watch page on a religious basis, and I feel terrible about the situation. And unfortunately, as has been laid out here in various ways, it's a tough nut to crack, and I hope that people realize out there that it's not because any of us on this council doesn't care about that. I think that's the thing that bothered me the most, was somebody opining that perhaps this is for some reason being done because people don't care or they want this to happen. None of us are here to try and make things worse. I know all five of us up here are here to make the world better. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. I don't really have very many comments that weren't already said.
I got you. Good job.
I got that in mind.
Okay.
It's going crazy, but I just wonder. No, there's not much for me to add as far as council member comments. I've been trying to help out wherever I can behind the scenes. I'm not Big Dave. I'm not super vocal. I'm also not, how tall are you?
6'4".
I'm also not 6'4". I'm a good foot and 2 inches shorter than that. Most of the stuff I've been looking into is behind the scenes, looking at how, so for example, the aggressive dog situation, looking at how we can get those supplies, how we can fix quarantine facilities and transportation. I wish it was a super easy answer as just hire someone and it will work out. Even some of the things we were doing previously with our animal control officer, who was, I heard, wonderful. I don't know him personally, but we still didn't have quarantine facilities that met state standards. We still didn't have good ordinance recovery cost systems to actually find these people who are bad dog owners. I think that's a big thing that gets forgotten, is how are we making sure that when we do bring this person on board, they're going after the people who are incurring the cost, that we're not putting all of this on every single resident just because we have a couple of really bad dog owners. So I've been looking at a number of different city examples on how they put together their programs, how they do cost recovery, how they do the communications between law enforcement, animal control, and the animal support organizations. So I know that's not super glamorous, and a lot of people don't see that, but yeah, I like writing the ordinances that are really boring and technical. So yeah, and it's been really nice working ordinance and things like that, and giving him a couple of different pointers. I attended 3 conferences in April that were really great, one of which was the National Climate Adaptation Forum, which was in Madison, Wisconsin. And I got to meet with a lot of different cities that are trying to tackle wildfire preparedness, that are trying to tackle significant flooding events, hurricanes, snowstorms, things like that. And it was kind of nice because it's not usually a typically nice topic to talk about disasters and how people are all losing their homes. But it was nice to go to a conference like that and get to meet with other cities that are trying to tackle the same issues we are. And to learn that, you know, we do have a really great group of residents, and anytime I get to talk about the city of Dunsmuir, I have to bring up the fact that we have, I think, some of the best residents in Siskiyou County. Yeah, and I think just the level of care, the level of concern, and the work ethic, I think, of the residents who try and support their community is really, it's not heard of in any other community across the United States. So that's really nice to do. So I hope we can move forward with a lot of these things. One of the difficult things is with our new protocols, we do a pre-agenda meeting where it's myself and one of the other fellow council members looking at what's going to be on the next agenda or the agenda in June and how we're going to time these items. It's going to be really difficult to talk about priorities with those things. I know the council has set priorities for the year, but it's going to be really difficult to agendize a lot of these things all in one meeting, especially since we don't have a permanent city manager at the time. But once we move into our closed session to talk about that, you know, I'm really hopeful for that process to get someone in here in the next couple of months so that we can get rolling on these initiatives and have some more support going forward with those. Like I said, I think for me, it's looking at consistency, making sure that if we are hiring someone, we don't have to fire them next year because we have no revenue. Because to me, that would probably be the worst case scenario is we do go forward really fast, hire someone, and then don't have tax revenue this next year because of fires or Caltrans or any other type of emergency that can happen.
This is where you knock on wood.
I know. But, yeah, the other thing too is I've been meeting with Johnson Controls to talk about the water system as well as solar projects. Talking to Chief Padilla, he had talked about considering solar for the Community Facilities Direct Loan and Grant Program. Johnson Controls has been offering free services to smaller cities that would be willing to look into solar projects, as well as hydroelectric production from the water pressure that we get from our water system. So they'd be willing to look at that moving forward. So I'm trying to organize that and get that ready for when the permanent city manager comes on board. That would be a big infrastructure project to look at. So that's kind of just what's going on with me. So
Question, is it appropriate at this time to kind of give a general summary of where we are in the search process?
no, I think that's going to come up during closed session because we're
Oh,
getting
that's right, okay,
Yeah.
good.
Okay. Councilmember Bryan.
Yes,
The floor is yours.
to begin with, I'd like to say that we had another meeting, Big Dave and myself with the sheriff, sheriff's negotiator, and we have a contract ready to execute. We can go to council at the next meeting. We can move that. Part of what comes with it is the sheriff's office has requested that we continue the committee that negotiated the contract to just review where we're at with the contract, how it's working for us, and communicate, keep up lines of communication between them and the city. We meet on a minimum quarterly basis, so that I think should also be included in the next agenda. It should be a matter, of course. I would be happy to address any questions about the negotiations at that time, but I would move that we put that on the next agenda.
I'd have to echo that.
Especially as it is a number in the budget.
And it's time sensitive.
Correct.
All right, good job.
I'd like to clarify something on the pool. One is that, you know, the TUT funds are not $115,000 this year, they're 95 this year, they're projected to be 115 next year. And this year, we're not quite sure what the exact number is, but it could be upwards of $100,000 that we're actually dipping into our reserves for this current fiscal year. I just want to dispel any notion that there's $115,000 sitting in an account that the Parks and Rec Service wasn't smart enough to know, or we didn't offer that. By the same token, I would like to commend Big Dave, who's working reopening the pool. There was a breakdown in communication, I agree, but it's community involvement that brought it back to life. it wasn't money to pay the lifeguards, that was the essential issue. It was people willing to be lifeguards and be paid. And I'm so glad that the community stepped up once they were aware of the issue. And I thank Big Dave for his involvement there.
Yay.
I think the people, you stepped up. I mean, thank you for stepping up.
Yeah. So the finance committee's been quite busy. We met on April 25th, May 22nd, May 9th, May 15th respectively, and had some pretty involved discussions, both big picture and the details. It's very difficult because we want to get involved with all the details and spend a lot of time on that, but we're trying to keep the goals of the city council as adopted earlier this year in mind in our own examination of the budget. All 4 meetings, including the one before, were only on the general fund. We haven't got to the enterprises yet, and we're going to look more at the big picture goals. So we finished our review of the general fund, with the revenues and expenditures, and I have to say it's a very challenging picture. Without adjusting for anything, we're very much in a deficit. So we've just a basic working hypothesis right now. We've got 3 things in there. I think the latest workout, we were over $90,000 in deficit. And I'd like to be clear, with all these things that we need to do for the city of Dunsmuir, we're that far in deficit with reducing our law enforcement hours by 25%. We're that much in deficit with just a half-time code enforcement officer, not a full-time. That doesn't include any more expenses for planning. We're very lucky, I'd say, as a city, to have our mayor and her knowledge. Many other cities should be paying a great deal to have her involvement and expertise and guidance just on the advice side alone, and I thank her for helping. But the city needs, as a city, to be able to conduct its own planning. Grant writing, I think, is a great concern. We need to produce revenue. But we're this far in deficit without spending anything more on grant writing. What's planning?
Question if I could. Which year you're talking about, this year or next year?
Projected year.
Projected, thank you.
Projected year. Animal control, it needs to be taken care of. It is at a semi-emergency level. But whether it's partnership with other interested parties in the area, or whether it's our own animal control, we need to figure out if it's something the city requires, and I believe it is something the city absolutely requires. But we need to look into how we can fund it. We have no animal control budgeted into the current budget, and we're already at a deficit. So if we want code enforcement, we want animal control, we want grant writing, we'd like to fix our sidewalks and streets someday too, as an aside. But I'd also like to say, we do need all those things, we need to work towards them. 3 of the 4 new business items involve increase in expenses. So we're already behind, and everything's getting more expensive. I mean, it's just the nature of life. Costs go up for us all. And the city's costs are going up at the rate of the economy. I'm not trying to paint this huge picture of doom and gloom. It's rather to understand why the Finance Committee in its last meeting directed staff to look into the possibility of, we're looking for any funding sources, but look into the possibility of raising the TUT taxes and what could possibly be done there to perhaps raise some revenue to get in front of some of these things and have animal control. Now, TUT will be a general fund tax, as the one before it is. It could be used at the council's discretion. It's not for a particular issue, but it's clear that we need funds for all these services that our citizens require, that they expect. And as I said tonight, I have to thank her. It was very brave of Carrie to come up and say, I don't want to pay more, but I do want these services. I expect this from my city. And I'd like to echo her in saying that, we're going to look at it, and I hope to have a recommendation to the council, maybe with some discussion at the very next meeting about the possibility of moving forward and what it would look like, potentially raise the TUT taxes. At the current rate, well, let's just wait until we know more about it, but that's just one way in which we possibly could, with the approval of our citizens, raise funds to take care of the diverse needs of the city's general fund. We want all these services. We want them to be efficient, well-funded, stable. We want a code enforcement officer, as our mayor pointed out, that isn't brought on for 1 year. We could hire full-time this year. And we'd be fully out of general fund reserves if we kept up that pattern in about 2 years. hiring them alone. So we have to secure funding and figure out what our most valuable next move is in financial resiliency. I love the term we adopted. How do we get to financial resiliency? And if we can raise some funds, say through a TUT increase, we need to very carefully make the first few moves in directions that will actually, one, deal with public safety. That's the primary first concern for us. But two, how do we foster prosperity? Because we can raise the rate once, and it's very important to do it perhaps here, but the long-term vision is a more prosperous Dunsmuir. We need to figure out what the next right move is for this year, and the next year, and the next. It may look different in 3 years. I hope it looks a lot better. But for law enforcement alone, we couldn't afford the increase to maintain our hours. Not that we've adopted it yet, but in the proposed alteration. In 3 years, we renegotiate that contract. Are we going to cut it by another 25%? Or we're going to just give up on very essential items to the city. So I think sources of funding needs to be a focus of this council going forward for the next year, maybe 2 years. And then very carefully spending what little we are able to raise for Dunsmuir's prosperity. So I hate to be long-winded with this, but it's a concern. We're not, with the general fund, projected to be in a very good spot relative to all the services we're trying to either instate or continue.
Thank you. I don't know if I should thank you, but thank you for the
Well, no, as vice chair of finance, I love my chairman. He's done yeoman's work. It's going to benefit all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
We can move on.
Yeah. So are there any other council comments for tonight?
The only other one is to pick up on, it's raining today, but for that week when the sun was out, the complaints came rolling in about Osprey Trail, and it's going to be with us very soon. Madam Mayor, you said you were going to talk to somebody at UP.
Yeah.
I really think someone from UP needs to journey up here from Sacramento and tell the community, are we going to have another summer of no trail?
Probably have another summer of no trails. So
But when does it happen? When can we tell the people, the economy depends heavily on a safe, legal Osprey Trail.
So the only update that I can bring right now is Big Dave and I, we talked to.
Can I say something, please?
Sure.
You guys remember when Tom Hensel just came here?
Yep.
Yes.
And he said, we're building the trail. UP isn't along, we're gonna get right there, and then we're just gonna go there. So we're gonna have somewhat of a trail. It's not an official trail yet, but we're gonna have a trail there.
I have a suggestion. Perhaps we could secure a Union Pacific representative
His name is Francisco.
to represent his company at Railroad Days, and maybe some opportunity to discuss that.
Train don't play the railroad days anymore. I'm on the railroad days committee, they ain't interested. They're not interested. They don't want to get money, they don't want to do the railroad days.
I did reach out to our representative, and he was not available when I was in Sacramento to meet with him, but I did have a couple of emails. I haven't looked at it in a little bit since April when I was out there, but I can send him another email about contacting him. One thing Big Dave and I did do is we did follow up with Mr. Hesselden's, and we did urge him to put together a proposal and take it to our planning commission for consideration, for recommendation to us. So we did encourage him to do that, to go through the process, that we are supportive of that, and hearing the project itself. So I'm hoping that as the Trail Association moves along, they'll be able to come back to us within the next year. But as far as constructing a formal trail, that's not going to happen this year. It does take quite a bit of time to secure the funding for that type of project, especially that type of bridge. And I know that it's not something you can really just put up in a day. We need to make sure that it's engineered properly, that it does go through building assessments. But they are moving forward, which is a good thing. They do have funds committed to doing the design process for that. And they have been having a lot more luck with Union Pacific than a lot of other people have. So I will reach out to our representative again from my seat and ability to do that, but I am also still in contact with the Trails Association, how we can assist them any way we can. It's gonna be, we're gonna have a better time negotiating or speaking with Union Pacific if we're doing it with the Trail Association, with other organizations supporting that trail. It's gonna be much harder for all of us to try and do it individually. So I'm kind of leaning on the Trail Association to take the lead since they have developed a communication channel, and any way that we can support them. So that is
There's a $250,000 contribution.
So the citizens of Shasta Retreat this summer, they say there's insufficient signage telling people where they can and cannot park. There's pee and pooping problem. I mean, do they call the sheriff? Who do they call when people are parking in their front yard, obstructing their ability to get out of their house?
Yes, they call sheriff.
So we regularly patrol that down there. We're citing cars down there all week long.
As far as signage and things like that, I'm gonna just direct staff to maybe get back to us what some of our options are. If there are any extra signs that Public Works may have, sometimes that happens. But we can we can have staff just take a look at the signage issue, if there's any extra signage that we have around that could be placed down there. But yeah, that's the update that I have for that project.
It's totally not, it's on that topic, but did you guys know that they were, UP was actually giving tickets out for people walking through to Mossbury just this last week?
That's a separate topic we have to talk about. Thank you. Anyway, are there any other council comments for tonight or consideration of any future agenda items? Seeing none.
I just wanted to clarify that we did adopt a discussion of TUT increase as a discussion item for next agenda.
I would support discussing options for raising TUT. Okay. Thank you for the reminder. All right. We've now moved to item number 14, which is adjournment. So all those in
Well,
favor?
before we do, adjourn to close.
Oh, I'm sorry, closed session. I've written so many notes over it.
I would like to publicly thank our die-hard citizen, Sharon. Stays in every meeting.
I'm gonna put you on camera.
Yeah.
Yay, there's Sharon.
It's a bummer she's gonna ask you to leave now, but thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
We will now close the regular open session to go into closed session regarding public employment appointment pursuant to Government Code Section 5495.4.5, title City Manager Search and Screen Committee. So we will recess for 5 minutes before that all takes place so that our staff and everyone can use the restroom before we do that.
Thank you, Ms. Manya.